I did not hear the door open. I did not even know anyone had entered my house until I turned around, and there he was. Tyler, my neighbor's 20-year-old son, standing in the middle of my kitchen with this strange, unreadable look in his eyes. He did not knock. He did not call. He just walked in. I remember wiping my hands on a dish towel, stunned, my heart hammering for reasons I did not fully understand. I asked him if something was wrong, but he said nothing at first. He just stared at me, like he had been carrying something for too long and finally decided to drop it right here. Seconds later, he opened his mouth. And what he said, what I felt, I knew my life would never be the same again. Before I continue, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. To every new subscriber and to my amazing returning viewers who are yet to subscribe, I truly appreciate you. Your support is the fuel that keeps this channel going. If you love raw, emotional stories like this one, please hit that subscribe button right now. It means the world to me. And remember to leave your thoughts in the comments. I love reading every single one. Let's continue the story. My name is Vanessa. I live in a small town in Maine where everything looks picture perfect, but not everything feels that way on the inside. I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 16 years. From the outside, we look like the couple who made it, stable jobs, a nice house, no scandals. But truthfully, we have not touched each other emotionally in almost 5 years. We move around each other like ghosts. We talk logistics, bills, schedules, groceries, but never our hearts. Across the street from us lives Linda, my longtime neighbor and friend. Her son Tyler used to mow our lawn during summer breaks. He left for college when he turned 18. Back then, he was just a kid with headphones always stuck in his ears. But 2 months ago, he came back. And he was no longer a kid. He had grown taller. His voice had deepened. But more than that, he had sadness in his eyes. Something unspoken. Something that made me ask questions I should not have asked. We began to talk. In little moments. At the mailbox. In the backyard. At first, it was innocent. He would help me bring in groceries. Fix my outdoor light bulbs. Stay for a soda. But lately, I had noticed the way he looked at me, like he saw something in me that even Mark no longer cared to see. It was Tuesday afternoon. Mark was out of town for a work conference. I was home alone. I had just finished baking banana bread and was cleaning up when I turned, and Tyler was there. "Are you okay?" I asked, startled. He did not answer right away. He looked at the kitchen counter, then back at me. I needed to talk to someone, he finally said, voice quiet. I did not know who else would listen. I should have told him to leave. I should have kept things simple. But I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at the dining table. The silence between us was thick. He looked straight into my eyes and said, "Vanessa, do you ever feel like no one sees you anymore?" My breath caught in my throat. I knew that feeling too well. But before I could respond, he reached across the table. His hand lightly brushed mine. It was not just what he did. It was the way it made me feel, like I was being seen, deeply. Then he whispered something I still cannot forget. And in that moment, everything shifted. Tyler's voice was barely louder than a breath when he said it. "You are the only one who notices me. You are the only one who makes me feel real." I remember my pulse pounding in my ears. His words hit something in me I had buried years ago. Not because they were seductive, but because they were honest. Because I had once said almost the same thing to myself in the mirror when Mark had forgotten our anniversary 3 years in a row. I pulled my hand back. Slowly. My eyes dropped to the table. I tried to act calm, tried to deflect with a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "You're just tired. You have been through a lot lately, Tyler. Maybe you should go get some rest." But he did not move. His shoulders dropped like he had expected rejection but needed to try anyway. I know what this looks like. I just needed to tell someone. Someone who would not think I am weak or broken. That part caught me off guard. Because the truth was, I had seen that sadness in his eyes. But I had not seen it as weakness. I had seen it as familiar. Tyler had always been polite, kind, a little too observant for someone his age. I never thought he would say something like that to me. But in that moment, I did not see a boy. I saw someone searching for the same thing. I was connection. I stood up. I needed space between us. I needed to remind myself who I was. I walked to the sink and turned on the faucet just to hear something other than my heartbeat. Then I heard his chair move. He stood behind me, too close. Vanessa, I am not trying to disrespect you. I just needed you to know that I noticed you too. I turned around, slowly, and the look in his eyes, it was not lust. It was something more dangerous. It was longing. There are moments in life that feel like traps disguised as choices. And in that moment, I felt like I was standing in one. I whispered his name, Tyler, in a way that was meant to stop him. But it sounded like a confession. He stepped back. His face was filled with guilt. He apologized over and over again. He said he should not have come in. He should not have said any of that. Then he rushed out before I could say anything else. I stood in the quiet kitchen, shaking. Not because anything had happened, but because something almost did. Something in me was not the same. I went to bed early that night. I did not even finish my laundry. But I could not sleep. I kept hearing his words. I kept remembering the way he looked at me. I kept thinking how I had not felt that scene in years. The next morning, I tried to push it out of my mind. Tried to go back to normal. Tried to forget. But life does not always let you forget. 3 days later, Mark came home earlier than expected. He had left the conference a day early and decided to surprise me. I was making tea in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. And when I opened it, there was Tyler. Again. But this time, he was not alone. Mark stepped into the room right behind him. Why is he here? Mark asked, his eyes narrowing. I could not speak. My hands began to tremble. Because the worst part was, I did not know how to answer. Mark stood in the kitchen doorway, his eyes darting between me and Tyler. His voice was calm, but his jaw tightened in a way that made my stomach twist. I asked a question, he said again. Why is he here? Tyler looked down. I looked away, and the silence that followed was louder than any answer we could have given. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say Tyler was just dropping something off, that he needed help, that it was nothing. But I could not. Not because I wanted to confess anything, but because I suddenly realized I had no idea what nothing meant anymore. Mark turned to Tyler. You need to go. Tyler hesitated for a second, then nodded. Yes, sir, he said quietly and walked out without looking back. The door clicked shut. Mark did not speak right away. He stood still, staring at the counter like he was doing math in his head. Then he asked something that broke the floor beneath me. How long has this been going on? I stepped forward. Nothing happened, Mark. I swear to you. He laughed, but it was not a real laugh. It was the sound of disbelief wrapped in pain. Nothing? You expect me to believe that? He looked at you like, he stopped himself. Do you think I am blind? I wanted to defend myself. But the truth was, he was not entirely wrong. Maybe nothing physical had happened. But emotionally, something had cracked open. And Mark could feel it. I could feel it. What followed was a week of cold silences, sideways glances, and quiet dinners that felt like funerals. 2 weeks later, Linda, Tyler's mother, came knocking. Her face was pale. Her hands were trembling. She had found Tyler's journal. She read me one paragraph. Just one. It spoke about a woman across the street. A woman who made him feel less invisible. A woman whose sadness matched his own. A woman he had fallen for. Linda did not cry. She just looked at me like I had stolen something sacred. I trusted you, she said. You were like family. Then she left and never spoke to me again. Mark started sleeping in the guest room. Not because I cheated, but because I almost did. And that was enough to break what little we had left. I begged him to go to therapy with me, to fight for what we had. But something inside him had already shut down. 3 months later, he moved out. No affair, no dramatic goodbye. Just a silent decision that grew louder each day. The neighborhood never looked at me the same. I was no longer the friendly wife across the street. I was the woman who almost crossed a line with her friend's son. And Tyler? He went back to college after summer. I never saw him again, but sometimes I still hear his words. You are the only one who makes me feel real. And I wonder, what would have happened if I had not opened that door? If I had not let the loneliness speak for me? Some mistakes do not need to become physical to leave permanent scars. Some moments, just moments, can ruin everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe emotional betrayal is sometimes worse than physical? Should Vanessa be forgiven? Was she a victim of neglect? Or did she cross the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. Please like, share, and subscribe if you felt something from this story. Your support keeps this channel alive, and your comments keep these stories real. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.